Ladies and gentlemen, we're back finally. First episode of 2023, and we're going back to Halloween. Spooky January. So we talked a while back about this Halloween project that we're working on, this diorama that it was Scott's idea. That he and his girlfriend painted these minis, and then he asked me to kind of help him make a diorama out of it. And we're like, cool, we'll make it for Halloween, and that didn't happen.
We got busy in the holidays.
Yeah, we finished it up this past weekend, and I'm pretty happy with the way it came out, man.
Me too. It's great.
And so like I said, it was kind of Scott's idea. He sort of began the painting process, and then handed things off to me. But so why don't you tell us about what it was like? The whole process of painting all this.
Yeah, it was one of the subscriptions I had. They did a drop during Halloween and saw some of the models. Thought they were pretty cool. Did some prints, and then my girlfriend ended up seeing the tree. That's what kind of caught her attention. She's never painted anything before. She asked if she can paint it, so she painted that, the great stones and the sarcophagi.
Coffins. You can just
coffins.
say coffins.
Okay, those two. And then I saw that, printed that out, and I thought it'd be a cool print. This is actually the second rendition. First one went horribly wrong. I ended up at the end putting a wash over it, and it was bad. So yeah, learning curve for sure. So and it was also the first time she's done with speed paints. It was the first time I've ever used those. The rest of it was just your normal acrylics, a little pseudo OSL on the zombies, kind of with the green. Knowing what I know now, because I'm continuing to practice and improve on my skills, it's okay. I think I can do a better job now, but overall I think the thing looks great. I think thematically it's awesome. So yeah, it's just, that process of painting, figuring out the colors. This was actually one of the few minis where I was actually able to go in and actually get details on the face. Yeah.
Your face actually, it looks pretty good.
Yeah,
The face looks pretty good.
Didn't look like she fell into a bucket of paint.
She didn't look insane.
Right.
Eyes going in different directions.
So
I like the shading on this magic stuff here, and I think that actually came out really good.
Yeah, that took me a few different attempts and a few different tries, but overall, painting process wise, printing, it was easy. I wish I could remember which. I have so many subscriptions now. I don't know who I got it from.
How long did she take to print? Do you remember? And this was all resin, right?
Yeah, it's all resin. I think she was maybe 8 hours. Where the coffins and the trees and everything all at once was like another 6 or 8 hour print.
That sounds about right. I printed, because this is 75.
Yeah,
and I printed one of those.
Yeah, right.
Because I can't. My resin printer is pretty tiny, but and it took about 7 or 8 hours.
Yeah.
So I do I think you did a really good job on her face, and I think the cool thing about this is that you were experimenting and trying to figure out some new stuff. And I mean, I think I think it's so easy just to want perfection and to be really disappointed. But the most fun that I've had when something doesn't go right, you know what I mean? But the most fun I've had painting minis and stuff is I just let it go, man, and just paint it however it comes out. You can't always repaint.
Yeah. Get lost in the process. That's definitely one thing, and I think I've touched on it in another video. I always did digital because I thought, because you can erase it, I would like it more, but it was harder for me conceptually to do it because I'm not touching something. Mm-hmm. And actually painting minis, that tactile feedback has been real enjoyable for me. I'm working on another one right now.
What are you painting right now?
It's like a Cthulhu-ish.
Oh yeah.
Buccaneer type
from Loot Studios.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
The Cthulhu Folk Raider or something like that. Yeah.
So he's I'm actually working with a very prominent, I guess, painter in the industry. Her name's Lila. She has a Patreon where you pay $70 a month, but you get an hour session with her.
Mm. And she has a YouTube channel. It's pretty good. I've watched some of her YouTube videos.
She does great stuff. So I've already had one session with her, and she helped me. I wasn't connecting the dots on how to do feathering, wet blending, and how you do the different midtones versus the shadows. I was doing it in reverse, and she quickly pointed out, no, you just do it this way. It's made a huge difference in what I'm painting now, so I'm looking forward to being able to present it sometime. But
just try not to hit me in the face. So one day I went over to Scott's house, and he was showing me these minis that he and Jen had painted, and and we were talking about making this diorama, so I took some measurements. That was kind of the first step, is I just measured the bases and took a picture of all of them. In fact, and when you see the footage, you'll see that I actually have my iPad there, and I've got the picture pulled up in front of me so I can see everything. And so the first step was I just took some measurements of each one of these things so I'd know how much space to give them on the project, and give me an idea of how big the project needed to be. And this is the first time I've done something like this. I've built terrain before. I mean, before I got into gaming, I was doing model railroading, and so I've done this kind of thing, but not quite this way. So the first step in the process really was just cutting out this funky chunk of foam. I mean, I just cut out about a 1 foot by 1 foot square and drew a funky design on it. And I was kind of thinking as I was drawing it that I wanted the coffins to kind of be front of the piece, and the zombie girl to be kind of in the back. So that's why the little lobes on the front. So I drew that on the piece of foam, and I just cut it out on the Proxine. I wasn't trying to be real precise or anything, but just kind of trying to generally follow the shape. And once I cut it out, I mean, I drew in, like I used a compass and a square, and I just kind of drew in where I wanted things to go. I put a circle here where the tree was supposed to go, and a circle where the zombie girl and her zombie friends were supposed to go. And I kind of, I did this originally, like I put all of these in a straight line across the front, and you suggested that I kind of stagger them a little bit. So I went back and did that with the headstones and the coffins. So initially, like if you watch the footage, you can see that I kind of drew things in a straight line there, but I kind of went back and moved them afterwards. But I put little circles where each of these gravestones was supposed to go, just so I would know exactly where everything needed to go. Yeah. And then from there, I cut out the graves, and this is actually pretty funny. I had to dig graves in this foam, so I cut the outline around it, and then I just dug the foam out. And I dug this one.
Did you have like a little lantern when you were doing it?
No, but I dug this one fairly shallow because I knew here I wanted to have this coffin that had come up out of the ground. But then the other one I dug a little deeper just because I wanted to make it look like a freshly dug grave. Right. And so I had the idea too of doing the pile of dirt with the shovel in it.
Yeah, it looks great.
But then so I cut all that out. I cut out the spots for those, and then I said, I was just looking at it going, I'm gonna try just texturing the edges. And so I started doing these V cuts all the way around the edges. And I wasn't sure about it at first. When I first did it, I thought, I'm not sure, but I think it came out great.
I think it goes with the stone piece of it, even though it's not stone, it just kind of gives it that rock feel.
Well, I think it does make it feel a little more organic than if I had just left it alone.
Right.
But once I did that, I think that I decided that, I beveled the whole edge of the thing, and you'll get to see a great shot where I cut a long strip off of one of these edges.
Superstar.
But I also went back and beveled the edges of the grave so it would look more like it had been dug in. And I cut out these cracks in the ground. And my idea was, and I'm not sure how well it came across, but my idea was that the cracks would sort of emanate from where this zombie chick is coming up out of the ground. And if you look, you can see that the wall back here is cracked where the crack went through, and the crack, kind of the idea was to give the impression that whatever force caused that crack to open up pushed that coffin up out of the ground. And so I kind of added in those details. And then of course, the next step was painting it. So I painted all this. I put Mod Podge and black paint was the base. Mod Podge and black craft paint. And then I used a couple of shades of brown, like a deep brown, and kind of overbrushed that, and then dry brushed on a lighter brown, and then a light dry brush on a little bit of white. And then I put a brown wash over the whole thing. Actually, before I did that, so
rewind.
Yeah, exactly. This right here, the mud around this grave, and the pile of mud in the front, and the mud around the zombie. That's all air dry clay. It was Sculpey air dry clay. It was my first time working with it.
And there was a fairly large base on her, so.
Oh yeah. So I'll get to that in a second. But so I basically, the first thing I did before I painted was shape these mud piles around here out of the air dry clay, and I just kind of made some blobs and shaped it around where I wanted it, and then I had some texturing tools for modeling that I just kind of textured them with. But I wasn't sure, because I've never used it before, if it was gonna stick to the foam. Right. I didn't know if it would or it wouldn't. I've used like Milliput, things like that, and they stick. Right, if you use that to fill a gap or something, it sticks. But this did not stick. I had to go back and glue them down afterwards. But it was nice because I actually shaped this so that it went down inside the hole, so it was pretty easy to fit it exactly where it needed to go.
What kind of glue did you need to use to? Obviously not.
I think I just used that would eat the foam. Right. Yeah, but I think I just used like Elmer's or something. Okay. Yeah, just white glue. If not white glue, it was hot glue, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't hot glue. So I think the only thing I used hot glue on here was this guy.
The masonry.
To put those together. And so then after I painted it, and kind of got the nice dirt texture, dirt color all over, then I just grabbed all my grass flocking and my little grass tufts and some flowers and well, dang man, I'm skipping all around here. So before I painted it, I had to make the wall. Jeez.
Rewind that again.
Yeah. So this is what happens when you try and do the commentary without watching the video. But we'll show the footage too, and you can see what's going on. So I built the wall. I had some bricks already cut to this size, so I just went ahead and used what I had, and I just kind of followed it, followed the curve, and like I said, I wanted to have a nice break here, and I have just some broken stones and different things just to give it that kind of run down, ancient graveyard feel. And these are all, like, I debated that I want to do a double layer just to give it a little more strength, and you can see it does move a little bit, but the thing's not going anywhere unless you abuse it.
Yeah. Looks great. I love the wall.
Yeah, thank you. I was pretty happy with that part. But yeah, so I painted it, and I painted everything with that black Mod Podge base. Painted the ground. Oh, I forgot too. These mounds for the graves are also made of air dry clay. I forgot to mention that. But so once I painted everything, wall, ground, everything with the black Mod Podge,
then we completely changed directions, and we started.
And I ran it through the garbage disposal. That's right. And Scott and I are no longer friends. And then so I painted the dirt with the couple shades of brown, whatever, brown wash. Then I painted this stuff pretty much the way you would paint dungeon tiles or something like that. Just after the black Mod Podge, I just used like 2 shades of gray and some white, and then black wash over it. And then I went to texturing. I used a couple of different shades of grass flocking. Some of them, you may see them in the footage, but one of them was like Woodland Scenics, blended turf, and the other one was actually a guy who was a vendor at is it the North Texas? There's a model railroad show that happens in Plano every year, and he was a vendor at that one year, and I bought some stuff from him. And
Big Choo Choo, Texas.
Some of that, no. But he made this. If you see some of the grass that looks a little more brown, that's the stuff that he made. So it's got a couple of different colors in there, and I just thought.
Did you have to use those like special little tweezers to put that stuff in?
No. So this stuff right here is it's like in a shaker, and you just sprinkle it on. So you had to put you don't have to put glue down, but I did. Like I brushed down a whole bunch of glue. So like a lot of times what you can do is just sprinkle it all down, and then you can do like a real thin glue with an eyedropper over it. And that'll help it stick. And there's a couple other stuffs in there, but I actually brushed glue on the thing, sprinkled grass on, and just kind of brushed a patch, and then sprinkled grass on, and then brushed a patch and sprinkled some on just to get it covered. And then I went back and added some flavor. And then
Cajun flavor.
Yeah. And so I did things like I put the bushes on. I have these are just little tufts. I mean, this stuff is basically like torn up sponge, and it looks like little bushes. It's great. But I have a couple of different colors of that I used on here just to give it a little more organic feel. And I even I went and did some on the outside of the wall. And I had some grass tufts and things that I just placed around, and this is, when you do stuff like this, it's really just about, just put wherever, man, the more random, the more natural it looks. You see I've got some places where they're a couple together or whatever. But I of course had this. I had some that are flowers, which incidentally you can actually make these pretty easy. If you have some grass tufts, you can just swipe a little brightly colored paint over the top of them and make a little flower. Yeah, but and I think that's pretty much basically what they did. But I put some flowers on one of the graves. I thought that was a nice touch, but
the zombies didn't disturb that one.
Right. Well, I figure this one is a baby because it's so tiny. So I was kind of, that's kind of creepy. So I just textured this, covered it in a way that I thought looked good. One of the last things that I did before I did the final sort of seal on it was my wife actually has this little moss stuff that's for like doing floral design things or whatever. And I thought, if I did that right, it could look like some kind of weird bush or like a really thick vine or something growing up the walls. And so I just kind of used that in a couple of places. And I think
this one's most notable. It looks good.
Yeah, and this one here, and then there's one on the outside here. And of course, now the trick was, I actually made all of this before Scott finished painting her. And so
2 tries.
Then I had to figure out how to get this thing to look like it was part of this.
Yeah, the base was pretty hefty.
Yeah. It was
and
probably. And
the zombies are attached to the base, so it's not like we could take it off.
Well, and I initially thought, well, maybe I can cut into the foam.
Yeah.
And kind of bury it down in there and then do some stuff around it. But honestly, the base was so thick, I was afraid I was going to have to cut so far into it that it was going to.
That's probably why it took 8 hours. I mean, just for the base alone. It was pretty hefty.
right. That's a lot of layers, man. But in the end, I put it on there and glued it. I glued all these pieces on, and I had already put grass everywhere. But I glued all these pieces in, and I actually, at one point, I had to go back and shave some of the inside of this mud right here so that I could fit the coffin down in there. And I'll tell you what, I glued this in, but I almost didn't have to because I popped it in there and it didn't want to move.
It's like, I'm done.
But I glued all these down, the headstones and everything, and then I just said, I'm just going to glue this down, and I did the same thing I did with the air dry clay, and painted that up to look like mud. And I didn't worry about getting paint on the grass or anything because I can just go put more grass on it. Yeah. And then I just sprinkled some more grass around. And so there's a mistake that I made here. The last thing I did to this before sprinkling grass on was put a brown wash on it. And I did not give the wash long enough to dry, which means some of my grass actually gets stuck to this mud. But I actually think it works. It looks pretty good.
Yeah, a little eruption.
So yeah, I mean that's pretty much the whole process. And the one of the important things is, if you don't know this, when you use this kind of flocking stuff, if you just glue it down, it's going to come off like all the time. Like you're just going to touch it, and it's going to come off on your fingers. And it won't be like big chunks of it coming off. It'll be just like little pieces. There'll always be little pieces falling off, right? So one of the things you have to do is there's a glue concoction. It's glue and water, basically. You just get some PVA glue really thin, Elmer's or whatever. And incidentally, I used I tried tacky glue, Aleene's tacky glue for the first time, and I used it on some of these, but it was just it's so thick and tacky. It was kind of hard to work with. I did use it on a couple of things on purpose.
But you're saying you put dish soap in with the
but this
glue
so
too, right?
I can't. I think I did. I can't really remember. I do know that one of the things that you should do. So when you do this, let me backtrack. You mix up that water and glue. You can put a little bit of dish soap in, and it just kind of helps the flow of it. Because the idea is that you are going to take an eyedropper and you're going to drop it on here, and it's going to spread out. And then when it dries, all of this stuff is pretty hard. It's not going anywhere. It's not coming off of my fingers.
There's no more flocking dandruff.
Right, exactly. So I did do that, but the first thing, when you do that, the first thing that you have to do is, now you're going to love this, Scott. This is one of my favorite things. The model railroad community comes up with some great names.
Choo-choo, Texas.
They have this stuff they call wet water. Let me say that again. It's called, zoom in on me, wet water.
Did you mean wet water?
Yes.
Okay.
So, but essentially it's just water with a little bit of dish soap in it. And it basically, you spray it on all over the whole thing, and it breaks the surface tension so that when you drop your glue on there, it doesn't just push all the little pieces of flocking everywhere. Because if you don't do that first and you drop glue on it, you're going to have, it's going to form a bead of moisture, and that grass stuff is just going to come up and suck to that bead, and you're going to have a lump, like it's just going to pull in all this stuff. And you can actually see, there are a couple places where that happened, but in the end, like I've done that on my model railroad, which it's right over there. That's why I'm pointing that way.
It's a lot of wet water over there.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm okay with it because it does add a little extra texture to the ground. Like, I don't want it to do that all the time, but in some places, like I was okay with it because it just added some more texture. But I tried not to do it as much as I could. So yeah, first thing, spray it with that wet water.
You need some dry water, and then you just add water, and then you get water.
Right, powdered water. And then you get it an eyedropper, and you can buy these things really cheap at Hobby Lobby or wherever craft store. And
Sephora.
Just drop that stuff. Yeah, drop that stuff all over. These are plastic, really cheapy plastic ones, not the fancy ones like you get at
the gold tipped ones.
Do you guys know that makeup brushes actually make great dry brushes?
They do, yes.
So, I mean, that's the whole process, man. And I'm, is this professional? No. Was it fun? Yeah, I enjoyed making it, man. And I love the finished product. And I mean, in the end, to be honest, I feel like sometimes this stuff is so easy and people just don't realize, how easy it is to make something and go, man, that actually looks like what I wanted it to look like.
I was watching some videos, other content creators out there, and just how much work they put into the bases, and instead of just making a plastic base, they've done things where they brought in wood and they've carved it, put it in. I've even seen some where they build their own backdrops, like little photo backdrops, and so when they build their models and put it in front and they take the photography of it, they've kind of built that and that whole process. And so it's kind of just tricking up what you're doing, so it's not just like, here I printed this resin print that has this base that it came with, which there's nothing wrong with it, but I guess it's just taking it to the next level. And it just makes it look
cool. Well, that's actually one of my favorite parts of painting minis, is that, because to me that adds that next level of realism and immersion for your gameplay.
Right.
Because I'm not painting mine to necessarily display. I like looking at them, but I'm painting them because I want to use them in a game.
I guess this will be coming up in a campaign soon.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, sure. The giant zombie chick with a.
I don't know, it could be from Thunder Tree.
She has a bow
I'm
in her
from
hair.
Thunder Tree.
Oh man.
We'll talk about that later.
How many heads you got in your bag? Anyway, thank you for joining us for this discussion of our Halloween. Oh, I forgot to mention, one of the funnest parts for me of this was I painted these little vines. And I just did it was really easy. I did a brown, and then I did a lighter green, and then I did a really light green over the top.
Layering.
And just layered on a few colors, and it gave it a little pop. And I think those came out really fun. And there were vines on the headstones and all that. I just think this whole set was pretty cool. So
we're gonna start now so that we have Halloween's done in 2023.
Actually, I've got my headless horseman from Loot Studios over there that I printed out, 75 million. You want to bring it to me, Zoe?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, trying to bump the camera. My daughter Zoe is here. She's helping us film, and so I will show you guys this guy. His head fell off. He is headless.
He is headless.
He has a pumpkin head. So I printed this guy. This is the largest model that I've printed. He's not glued down. That's why he's moving.
I got a big dragon. You'll see one day.
Yeah, dude. Shh. He's just trying to make me jealous. But this is the largest model I've printed, and I printed it hollow, and I don't think I would do that again. But I'm gonna paint this guy. And one of my favorite details, I probably shouldn't say this, but one of my favorite details is he's got a bunch of heads right there.
Back in.
Anyway, so maybe next Halloween, I'll paint this. I'll have this guy painted up, and we'll do an episode on him.
Yeah, fun.
And actually do it on Halloween. So thank you for joining us for our first episode of 2023 of Short Rest Studios. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and join us next time on Short Rest Studios.